we have had exchange programs and collaborations with Suresh for a very long time. So as a curator, he has curated Colombo Art Biennale in 2012. That was very successful art biennale, which was held some time back. So he believes in nurturing creativity, collaboration, and having conversation across cultures. He is currently involved in art practice, urban mapping, archiving, curating, and art education. So I would very much like to ask Suresh to give his views and opinion regarding the present situation and about what holds for future for the visual arts as such. Over to you, Suresh.
Thank you, Consi, and thank you, Theertha, for having me. It's very nice to see familiar faces, especially Jagath, who I've not seen for a very long time. So the COVID is also bringing us back together in some way or the other. So, but at the same time, we have common problems. So for an art residency like One Shanti Road, which is very similar to the way Theertha functions, there is a constant threat of lack of audience. So one of the most difficult things is that how do you imagine a performance or an art exhibition without an audience and without interaction? So these are common problems that we are going to face in the future. But at the same time, I also want to say that many of these spaces like Theertha or One Shanti Road have been like watering holes where a lot of people have been coming together, having conversations, eating together, etc. So the social space that existed is kind of threatened. So I feel that the COVID is an unprecedented situation, and we have to take different precautions and different measures to figure out how we are going to continue what we are doing as individuals and collectives. And what I want to also say is that as a art organization, there are a lot of other problems in terms of getting permissions now. I think to have an exhibition, you might have to have take permissions for people to come in, or limit the number of audience. So this is going to kind of hinder the kind of interaction that artists are going to have with the audience, and also there's going to be other situations like funding. So I feel funding is going to be hampered a lot. Most of the small organizations rely on funding, and this funding, either the government has to take a stance and fund organizations and individuals that are supportive of the cultural spaces or art spaces. So there are different problems for different people. But to be selective and to talk about Shanti Road itself, in the history of Shanti Road, this is the first time in 2.5 months, we've only had a few people walking in and coming and meeting us for lunch or something like that. And it's a situation that we never imagined that we are going to be in. But on the other side, I also want to say, as individuals, I think somebody who lives in the same space as I do, I live in Shanti Road. I've made the best use of this situation. I've been working more harder than I really should, and I've not been disturbed by visitors coming in. So I had a lot of work, research work to do, which I have completed. So I'm trying to say that it was a time for introspection. It was time for also looking within oneself at one's own reality and one's own fragile situation as an institution builder, but also somebody like an artist who or a writer who is also trying to find different ways of looking within to see what the future looks like. The future is open, and it's kind of bleak in some situations, but we need to see the brighter side of it. Maybe webinars are going to be the way to connect. So I think we might be seeing more of each other. There are going to be a lot of travel restrictions. People will not be able to frequent each other, especially international travels. So for almost 1 year till the end of December, we've decided that we are not going to have any residents. unless they are able to travel, and they hope that they will be kind of safe in a place like Bangalore. So this is what I want to say, and I'm sure others are going to say other things which we can come in and have a conversation with.
Yeah. Thank you, Suresh, that you have expressed as a curator and as a person who is running a facility, the kind of problems you are facing and how you are going to modify your practice accordingly. And that is a good thought for us as well. So as you say that travel restrictions and things like that might impede our communication in the sense that direct visit and stay and residencies and things like that. But anyway, we will have to invent things. So our next speaker is Professor Neloufer Dimel. She is a scholar. She is the professor of English at the Department of English, University of Colombo. She has authored many books and many chapters, and she has published extensively, and she is a well-known drama critic, and she is the chair of the Canadian Lankan author Michael Ondaatje's Gratian Trust in Sri Lanka. So at the moment, she is the chair, and she has held several research fellowships at very well-recognized universities internationally. And it's my pleasure to call upon Professor Dimel to give her thoughts regarding this situation.
Thank you very much. I want to start with thanking Theertha for inviting me to be on this panel on a very important topic. And it's also wonderful to meet my other panelists virtually. I just want to flag a couple of points that I've been thinking about during this time. The first is I wonder a lot about what the role of art is at this time of crisis. This is not a new question. This question has been asked before in all kinds of crises. But it's been a strange time for art. On the one hand, it's taken a real hammering, given the closures of exhibition spaces and cinema halls and theaters and so on and so forth. I think the precarity of artists as a community that kind of literally works in a gig economy that has closed up shows the vulnerability of the arts in the economies that we live in today. But at another level, as Suresh said, lots of opportunities have also come to artists. Time has been in its favor because we have had more time because of curfews and lockdowns to engage more in art, for artists to paint or work on their installations or whatever. More readers, anecdotally, we've been told that more readers have turned to books. Albert Camus' slim novel, The Plague, became a bestseller. Museums, galleries, opera houses, theater companies live streamed their performances online. And so there was a way in which art kind of really reached out to an audience that would normally may not have the time or the ability to consume that art and look at that art in particular ways. At the same time, I think people used art in very earthy ways. For instance, Vincent van Gogh, Marilyn Monroe, Mona Lisa found themselves wearing face masks. Indian folk artists painted face masks on gods and goddesses as their messaging on social distancing. Italians sang operatic arias from their balconies. These were ways in which people turned and used art forms in very kind of immediate, earthy, witty, and saucy ways that actually, kept us going, and brought laughs and really kept us going during these really awful days. But with this reach, I think, comes this important question. What does art do at this time of real fear and death of not being able to go to the funerals of your loved ones, of doctors having to decide whose life is worth saving and whose is not, simply because there are no ventilators. These kinds of crises, particularly in Europe and the US, they have never faced this since the World War. And the kind of people who are facing this crisis now is a very new generation. So as I said, this is not a new question. It has been asked before, but I think we have not settled on the answers. And I would like to ask, why is it that, what is it about art that makes such questions that we can't produce easy answers? You know, is there something about art that evades a settlement of this question about the role of art at times of crisis like this? Second point I want to flag is this idea of the new normal. This has now become very commonplace term, and usually it's used to address our social distancing and really our turn to the digital. But I think the ground is still shifting beneath our feet. As Suresh said, it's still too early to say what this will be, whether this is really the future or whether we will go back to some kind of a previous normal. And in this, but if this turn to the digital is going to be part of our life from now on, because it's supposedly reaching out to wide audiences and allowing for different art forms or new ways of expression. I'm particularly concerned here about arts that rely on live performance, as you said, where the in-person art forms, as Pam McKinnon has put it, require the immediacy of an audience response, which then the performances feed off from. I was talking to Ruhani Pereira, performance artist from Sri Lanka, the other day, and she was talking about how, as a theatre performer, the materiality of her environment is very important for her in her practice. Now, that materiality comes from bodies of other castes. It can be bodies of audiences. It can be chairs. It can be light, sound. It can be the physicality of the stage. So what happens when you lose that materiality that guides your practice and that you feed off from for your performance? The digital has been able to bridge this to some extent, but to bridge that separation between the artist and what separates him or her from audience or other members of the cast. But how much the digital has been able to compensate for the gulf that has been created and for that kind of immediacy that has been lost, I don't know. And I think here the digital itself is going to have to innovate a lot in order to be able to try and fill that gap, in order to be able to try and bring that immediacy. So I think it has some work cut out for itself in how it will have to develop new tools if we are to go forward with this. But we must remember that the digital was used in art long before COVID-19. It was there in immersive theater. It was there in digitally composed music, for instance. But there, artists use the digital more in terms of it being a form and a style. Whereas now the digital is really being turned to as the main relayer or the bringer of art to audiences. And I think this has been the fundamental shift that has occurred during this time. And my final point is connected again to the shift in the digital as a primary means of bringing art to audiences. At one level, the digital has democratized art. As I said, a lot of us have been able to engage with art in ways that we have not been able to do so before because of the digital. But we also have to remember that there is a digital divide. Not everyone has access to devices or data. Physical spaces, particularly if they have been free of charge to the public, have invited people from all walks of life to come in. I remember Chandragupta Tenwara, a Sri Lankan artist, telling me that there were people who walked off the street, or policemen who walked off the street, who came for his art shows at the Lionel Wen Gallery and looked at the art and then engaged with him. Now, would this policeman be able to access his art digitally? Would he even want to? So the question is, who do we bring in and who do we leave out? And for me, in this turn to the digital, what is lost and what is gained in both an expansion of the audience because of the digital and a contraction of an audience because of the digital, and also maybe a contraction of the way artists themselves engage in their practice because of the digital. So just to sum up, I've been thinking a lot about what does art mean during times of crisis like this? What are the multiple roles it plays? What do we turn to it for? And the role of the digital in how it is shaping art and performances at this time. And then if it is going to stay with us, the whole business about accessibility and who is it leaving out and who is it bringing in, because I see a whole political economy there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Neloufer. You brought out some salient features in the present situation. One about the how the arts have been used or modified, and the performers are modifying their practices accordingly to in a lockdown situation and also to a digital situation. And secondly, you said that the materiality of the presence of audience, how it enhances the performance and the interaction between the performer and the viewers, and that is being lost in digital era. And also thirdly, you brought out a good important point, saying that how the democracy of art forms may be at risk because of the limited accessibility, and also we can definitely bring in people whom we want and can be prevented, and there are a whole lot of policing around the digital information and the digital activities in many countries, so that is also becoming a threat. Right. So now I would like to call upon Professor Mamta Sagar. She is a noted Kannada poet, playwright and a translator from Bangalore, India. Her writings focus on identity politics, feminism, issues around linguistics and cultural diversity. She delves into the sounds and music innate to Kannada language and intersects her poetry performances with multimedia, multilingual and collaborative projects. She has come to Sri Lanka on invitation of Theertha, and even before that she has come to Theertha and did poetry performances which were well accepted by our audience. She has won many international awards, and she has been a visiting fellow in many international universities, and at present she is teaching comparative literature, translation studies, Kannada literature, feminism, post-colonial and post-cultural studies in Bangalore University. It is over to you, Mamta, to continue your ideas.
Thank you, Consti. I have moved away from Bangalore University. I'm now with Srishti Institute of Art, Design and Technology as part of creative writing faculty. Yeah. First of all, thank you, Theertha, for having me again. And this is wonderful to be with my co-speakers who have been really coming up with wonderful points. So as a poet and a performer, I would today want to share with you that the whole time of lockdown, the COVID, the lockdown, in a way we had never experienced. It's a new experience. So as both of them said that we had a lot of time to look in within us and try to understand, experience the silence, experience the kind of nuances of day-to-day living, which probably we did not much have time, or I don't know what. In a way, gradually as it goes on, and during the lockdown, whatever is happening around us in the society, and like if you take the question of the migrants, which we have been seeing in India, and kind of things that are happening in and around us all over the world. This lockdown, somehow, as a writer, I feel it is a must because there is this virus around us. But the experience that we have been experiencing during this time is a kind of an extension of surveillance and censorships. So even before this in India, we had a period of Citizenship Amendment Act. Against that, there were a lot of activity around that. And even like there are many junctures, suddenly one after the other, which have clamped down together. And in a way, suddenly this lockdown comes in. And as artists, as a writer, as a performance poet, I have been, and we have been in Bengaluru responding to all these, So when we are responding to all these, so you need to quickly equip yourself and start thinking about what is happening around us. For my practice particularly, as I said, I collaborate with artists and musicians as well. So visual, sound materials, text, context, body, the spaces, which is both private and public, and the audience, and a solo and the teamwork, collaborations, all these become very important. So there is a kind of a restriction around all these during the lockdown period. So if I take for all the performance artists, including me, I am a poet. I would like to call myself as a performance poet. I'm not an artist. He's also an artist, of course. So body becomes a site, body also becomes a tool, body also becomes an expression, and touch is something which is very important. So in India, this whole concept of touch has been ingrained in the society, and has multi-layered meaning to it, right from caste, gender, and everything. So during COVID, the touch takes a different form altogether and brings back the memory of the social and historical memory of all these that are ingrained in the culture. And it's very easy. And the language and the metaphors that are available around this, it's very easy because we have been using all these languages and metaphors around not touching, discriminating, social distancing, and secluding, marginalizing. So there are a lot of, the language already has its tools, which is very easy for us to apply during the COVID or time. Now I would say that, so I started saying that because already Suresh and Neloufer have said a few things how the digital would positively work for us. It is working positively because I curate an event called Weerasinghe, wherein lots of poems from all over the world are brought in. A translation is a major element, and we do it in public spaces in Bengaluru, including One Shanti Road and Art in Transit and metro stations and all that. And our audience are people, the public, people who are traveling, who are in the transit, and artists and all kinds of people, activists, all kinds of people. So now during this time, I am bringing in poets from all over the world who otherwise I wouldn't have afforded or could possibly bring them together at the same time on a platform. That has been possible for me. And, along with that, I'm also the Kannada reading, Kannada poets have been also like Kannada audience and Kannada poets are getting an access to something which was not very easily possible. So now the next, so post-COVID, if at all we imagine the post-COVID, I would like to say that post-COVID definitely comes with a severe surveillance, with a severe kind of censorships, and the public spaces become really a questionable space, and hardly you will have private spaces, because even that will be under surveillance. So how do we deal with it? I would like to say that I would like to use the digital as an extension. I would not want to give up on the public space. I would not want to give up on my audience who are not the great, uh, whoever is eligible to access literature. I don't think that there is anybody who has any eligibility. Everybody has an eligibility, as Neloufer was saying. Anybody can walk in and access, be with you, talk to you, and we do a lot of poetry workshops where people come in. In metro stations, if we are working, people who are taking care of the station during lunch breaks, they come and sit with us. See, I don't want to lose those audience. I am a person with a positive thinking that I would want, I don't know whether it happens or not, I would want the so-called, I don't want this normalcy which we are talking about, normalcy with the fear, normalcy with some kind of a different meaning altogether. I want that kind of a situation which may not be normal, which with all its hiccups, fine. We want our audience. But I would also want to extend my practice using digital. So, like bringing in people from different places, I would use it in a different way. And, I have also been collaborating with visual artists. And as Suresh said, and I'm also a friend of Shanti Road. So we have been seeing in Bangalore that we are not going to shows are not happening. And especially performance artists like Jolat, Smitha, or Dimple, or G, they are trying something, trying to work within using the digital. But when these are the artists, I picked up these names because they are the artists who use their body, who use the public spaces. So when they come on the digital, they may have to completely change their language. I don't know. I really don't know. And as a poet, for me, as I said, as a poet, my poetry is a tool for me to talk about gender, talk about marginalization, talk about all kinds of things in society. So I would like to, in a way, use this, extend this, and possibly make this, as you said, more democratic. Therefore, only by extending it as part of whatever we were doing. So now I really don't know when we could come back to the public spaces, when we could start performing, when we could meet the general audience who were our audience. I don't know if they would come back or not. And I'm sure, digital space is fine, but it has too many limitations. And more than we compromising with the digital space, I think we have to include the digital space and into our practice further. By saying this, I would, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mamta, for your views, because you told us that as a performance artist, you cannot be restricted and you want your same audience back, whether COVID or not. So we appreciate and we admire your boldness to face this challenge with all out with your own art and your own form. And also you are willing to accept the online media and expand your practice. That is a good view for us also, to take our views and sort of expand the audience and expand our reach than just limiting ourselves to the open air and the open space performances. That is a good way to look at it, I suppose. The next, I would like to call upon Jagath Weerasinghe, our own senior artist in Sri Lanka. He's a contemporary artist who is practicing contemporary art for a very long time in Sri Lanka, and who has brought about a major change in the art field since 90s, when he first exhibited his after coming from America, where he first exhibited his show at Lionel Wen, for which I also went and was struck by the novelty and the new potential that he showed from visual arts. So now he is a professor of archaeology at the I don't have to talk much about Jagath. He has participated in very many international events and also has been a scholar, visiting scholar in various universities, and had residencies in recognized American universities and various places. So over to Jagath.
Thank you, Consti, and thank you so much for organizing this this webinar at this time. And also, I'm pleased to see Suresh and Mamta, and of course Neloufer. But the last time I saw them was about 2 years ago, I guess, in Bangalore. I'm going to sound very redundant now. You have said everything that I could think of, but I think I'll be very brief, but I will bring in an important aspect, important point in a way responding to Neloufer's question. What can art do? I'm a practicing artist. My corner of Aturugiriya didn't even get the deliveries at the beginning of the lockdown. So at one point, I had to call the police and ask them, how am I going to survive now? Nobody is delivering anything to me, and I have no money. What I suggest, then, sir, why don't you just go to the market and get something? So I was at the very. I know in Colombo you all got all these deliveries, but we didn't. Anyway, that's not a complaint. I know that gave us a lot of time to think. But Konsi, I don't know if Konsi really realized that the gravity of the title of this webinar. It is not about COVID condition, it's a post-COVID condition. And at a time we are finding very, it's difficult to realize the current condition we are living in, and it's evolving even while we are talking. It's the condition itself is evolving. In one hand, I can see people are getting used to it. Look at what's going on, like current global scale protests against racism in the US and the political brutality. What it is showing is people are not being, hindered, or people are expressing themselves, like this condition is not stopping them from doing what they seriously think that should be done. So this is one thing that I am picking up, it's not going to deter us from what we want to do. And no, I'm not going to be hanging on digital platform for my art. No way. Anyway, and we know, in a way, people can see that people are getting people are ready to do what is necessary to change, and they are getting used to it. And when we also know that epidemics have fashioned and refashioned human civilization so many times. I just was knew that Hegel died for a cholera epidemic. Epidemic. You see what I mean? So epidemics have refashioned, and shown us what to do. So I take this as a serious challenge. So, and now coming to real work, what I see is in one level, for smaller grassroots level kind of organizations like Theertha, we would work at the people's level to dispel the idea that this virus is a hidden enemy. It's not a hidden enemy. I'm fighting I find myself getting caught in this idea of this virus as a hidden enemy, that we are caught in a kind of a war against this thing. I now think, no, we should get out of that model, that way of thinking about this enemy within. No, it is not a hidden enemy. We are not at war with it. You know why? Because that is one way we are letting the power regimes to curtail our free movement and everything we do. I know this is a deadly virus. I know, I'm not denying any of these things. But at the same time, because this is what we have to do. Like, we don't have a vaccine. We just have to live with it. So to live with it, we have to, all right, you see, for me, I think it's a dangerous thing to think of this virus in this particular way, which the regimes of power can use to control, like as Mamta was referring again and again, surveillance and censorship. We would be self-censoring us. So what artists can do, Neloufer, is actually address that aspect. I want Kansi to perform at Borala Junction, of course, Kansi in a different way. I want Bandhu Manampiru to walk through the Borala Junction, but of course, in a different way. It's only by doing that you can let the people know, okay, it's a different condition, we have a different problem, we do things differently, but we are we do the things that we have to do. That is what the Americans are showing us. That's what the people in Berlin are telling us. Even though they have totally forgotten the social distancing norm and all that, of course. Human life, like, challenging racism and police brutality is so important. Even here, we should be, rallying, showing our support to what's going on in the United States, not because of racism there, but because of so many missing people in this country itself. So you see, like that's exactly what is happening in Australia. People are out there not only because of George Floyd or racism in the United States, but also of how the status quo, the establishment, or the police has been treating the indigenous people. So here also we have, all of us have reasons to break the rule. Okay, having said that, no, I'm not asking you to, break all the rules, but I'm saying, no, I'm not ready to take it as such, to let the virus get into my system, and to think that we are in a war and allow the generals of war to control us. No, that is. So how am I going to do things to unsettle that kind of attitudes? Is by doing exactly the same thing that I did, but in a different way. That is up to us, that is up to Suresh, to Kansi, to me, to Bandhu, to all of, or Mamta, you to do it. I know, I already can see you will be doing exactly what you have been doing, but in a different way. So that's all I have to say at this point, but I can join in. All right. Kansi, cannot hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Yeah, you were sort of saying that we should adapt our same practices in a different way. Yes, I agree with you. As a performance artist, I think it's much important that we understand the situation and modify or adapt our performances in a way that will suit the present context, but never to give up on that and get to another level of a different media and try to do the same thing in a different form. But it is to adapt to the situation and create awareness, but go ahead with whatever we are doing, as Mamta said, in the same way. So thank you all. Now we will I want to pose some basic questions. One is there is a general feeling that like the film, like video, why can't internet live performance become another medium, like altogether new medium? For example, for performance, And also there is the other aspect of the restrictions and policing of this internet and the surveillance in various countries. Even in Sri Lanka, it might become a reality, but we still do not know who is monitoring us, who is under surveillance, who is not, and things like that are there. So I would like the panelists to give us their ideas about how we could use this as a new medium, at least in the performance art and things like that. So I will start in the same order, maybe from Suresh. Suresh, would you like to say something, or whatever the views that you have in addition to whatever you have said already?
I'm going to just take off from what Jagath just said now. I think I really believe in continuing the work we are doing, but maybe the content of what we are doing might change. But at the same time, we are also in a very critical situation politically and socially, with all these uprisings happening, whether it's in India or in America. I think it's also a political kind of suppression that is bringing about this kind of fear in not only with individuals but also in society in general. But the role of art, getting back to what Neloufer was trying to say, is to continue to like use all these possibilities and disadvantages to figure out how we are going to really speak up and continue to do what we're trying to do. And I feel we need to take advantage of uh, the internet and the ways that we could really open up this space to be more democratic. But at the same time, we know that there are many people who do not have these kind of situations to connect. So we also need to look out for them and see how they could be also part of this larger scenario, maybe on their mobile phones, etc. But I feel personally that as educationists, I'm sure Jagath is doing the same, and it's quite frustrating to just keep speaking into your computer and imagining there's a classroom sitting in front of you. How long are you going to do this? So it is quite daunting in many ways, but this is the only way ahead. Or is there new ways of connecting with audiences and students, etc.? But I also feel there is an opportunity for reconnecting with people who you're already connected with, like one-on-one basis, connect with people, like mentoring somebody, or kind of critical reviewing a body of work, etc. But I think understanding the possibilities of it, we may have to use whatever technology has given us to subvert it and move ahead. That's the only way forward. We cannot be sitting in our places and being afraid of the virus. We know that some of us are going to get the virus. We might be affected, but it should not stop us from doing what we really have to do. We need to be there. We should not be afraid of the disease or the virus, and we should make sure that we can see that however we can help the community to come together, either through the net or through physically being there, but maintaining social distance, to continue to do the things that we're doing, whether we're doing a residency program or we're doing a small show where people can come in batches, or it could be lectures which could be online and also offline for people who can sit and listen to us. So in terms of social engagement, I think it's an opportunity, but also physically, I think we need to wait and watch, because from what we know, that everybody says that the virus is going to peak in the next couple of months. So this is the warnings that we've been hearing, but I think we need to survive, sustain what we are doing.
Thanks, Suresh, for your encouraging words and the ideas of how to continue this. We'll come back after about a small pause for 10 seconds because there is some technical issues we have to settle.
Do we leave the meeting or we just?
No, no, you're not. It's coming in 10 seconds, he said.
Okay, we are back again. Neloufer, will you please view your ideas?
Thank you. Jagath and all the my fellow panelists, thank you for your thoughts. You're very right that what we have seen recently in terms of the George Floyd I Can't Breathe movement is that people are making a statement that there are things that are larger and more systemic than the virus that are important. And I think that is a very hopeful sign because art, young people, and it's not just only young people. If you see the crowds that came out in protest at the racism, it's all walks of life and different ethnic communities. They understand that there are systemic and structural problems in our society that need to be addressed, and that the COVID-19 should not be a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. In relation to art and how art deals with that, so that is to say that people still understand, and remember the virus is only 2 months old or 3 months old, right? If it was 3 to 5 years old, or it continues in this way, then I think that deeper transformation may take place. But right now, it hasn't yet. It created the kind of existential angst and the crisis that I spoke about. But it is only 3 months old, and we're already as humans thinking of what is positive, what is in the future, and I think that that propels art as well. So I think artists will keep hold of what are the deeper structural issues that define our time. Art has always defined our times. To me, that has been one of the roles that it has played. And it will continue to do that, but the practice will be different. And the practice for people like performance artists or poets who do live performance poetry will have to take into account this social distancing and so on and so forth, if it is going to continue for a long time. So which is why I said we really need to unpack this new normal, because we are now, right now, time is important. Time as a concept is important. We really don't know how long this will last. There is a way it can transform us deeply, or it may not transform us deeply. Right now, I don't think we're able to judge that. Right now, all we can do is respond to the everyday health needs that we are being told and change our practice, but not the content. And I do believe that the content will continue, it must continue, and that artists will engage in this. But as all of you have said, authoritarianism in the guise of COVID-19 has come in. This is, in a way, I've written about it, this is like a 9/11 moment for a number of governments, right, that are seizing the chance. And so, but those are not new either. We have faced these before, and art has responded to these before. So I just think that the COVID-19 is just another one of those things. If it is a global pandemic, but I'm not sure as yet whether it has systematically changed us, transformed us in a very deep and structural way. And I think, to me, the I Can't Breathe movement is a litmus test that it hasn't, and that we are still in touch with the base of the racism, etc., that is going on. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for art.
Yeah. Now I'll pass over to Mamta if you has to say any more in the same.
Yeah, like see, as all of us are in a way agreeing, the whole build up or the whole of understanding of the virus, the disease, the COVID. It is there. We cannot cancel that. It's still there. It is dangerous, and many people are dying, and we are seeing that. And along with that, this whole somehow I'm not comfortable with this word social distancing. So we have very easily distanced helps. We distanced everyone from the house. I would like to use the word distancing between individuals. That somehow, otherwise, somewhere I feel that this social distancing is something which has come from a very privileged kind of authoritarian way of looking life, whatever it is. So this kind of distancing, and we need to agree that it is there. And tomorrow, if you get in touch with our contact, you have a contact, you will die. People are dying. There is no hygiene. Everything is happening. But as artist, when I said that, I hope that I want to perform in the public, I was also trying to say that, as Jagath said, and as all the other two also said, we need to more think about or educate people about the kind of fear that is like the way the virus is being used for various other things to control, to hold you on, or to restrict you from certain things. Yeah, I do agree that yes, we need to have the content keep going, and which I think we do. And when it comes to this media, or when it comes to the digital media to be used in the practice, and collaboration in the practice, we need to find a new possibility that would add to our kind of performance. And as I speak and as I spoke, that I want to perform in the public. And it's such a kind of hypothetical statement. It's become like that, because we have started, like Jagath said, we should stop believing that virus is our enemy. So by making you believe that virus is our enemy, instead you can realize that getting in contact with virus is not good. It's dangerous. You will die. But virus is your enemy. With that statement, you have been cooking up everything in the society, controlling things in the society. We need to be sensitive more about that, and that should be part of our practice. So whether there is this hypothetical, I believe that soon things will be okay. As Suresh said, next few months is quite critical, because we are in a damp condition, and the winter comes in, and summer goes away, and it's a nice space for spreading of virus. We have to be careful. I only hope that no more damage happens, and people who, like us, who are safe, who are here on this platform talking to each other, talking to the public, also know that there are people beyond this somewhere, everywhere, who neither can access this nor can sustain their day-to-day lives. And as artists and writers, we need to be sensitive about that. And I think our content should also consist that, along with using the digital space. This is what I want to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Mamta. Now, Jagath, if you have something more to add to what has been said already.
Not really, but I just, you raised the question how use of the digital space. Until I began to do these Zoom lessons, I didn't realize that my archaeology graduates, archaeology students actually could do that. Like, they are all in my, they are all attending. So when you are an archaeologist, you always deal with the old things, and you think in centuries, 10 years is nothing for you kind of attitude, no? That's how archaeologists think, no? And then I didn't think that my students would be really tuned up to digital thing, but for my surprise, they're all there. Everybody has found access. I'm actually about 3 people out of 50 who have had some problem. Anyway, so of course, you can do performance. You can extend your performance space and bring the digital dimension. But I think, well, you should do that, but it's not you shouldn't do that because of the COVID thing. This is what you know what, as Mamta, as also, as Neloufer is reminding us, it's only 3 months. And may not do any change in the systemic way, like in the way that the whole things happen. Even if it does, this would, living with COVID-19 is the way that you show love again. That's the new condition of friendship. That's the new condition of living, rather than restricting yourself or hiding yourself. You see, like, anyway, this is what I'm saying. Like, with this discussion, I'm getting more strength, like, to do it. But I was privately thinking, even if this thing is going to be with us, it's going to change it. It's not going to change the content of our work and the serious issues that the humanity is facing right now, in different forms and different ways in different communities. Like, because I was deeply touched by the fact that the Australians are out there on the occasion of an American issue and bringing in their own issue of how the Australian racism towards indigenous people. I think, and they are doing that with the threat of COVID. What is more beautiful could be in life? Aren't you happy to be, witness that? See, we have a deadly threat, and thousands of people are out there, and not in the place where it happened, in other continents. And then they are appropriating it. I don't know, Neloufer, if that's the best word. They're using it to bring their own issues as well. You see, and talking to you, listening to, in this discussion is convincing me again, Consi, that, you should be doing your performance art exhibition, performance art festival by January, as we have planned. You're not going to change it. You will be wearing like big hats or like, social distancing and everything, but content. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I found Neloufer wanted to say something for the artist community as such. Neloufer, over to you.
Sorry to bring in a slightly negative note to this celebratory kind of thing. I think one of the dangers we have, is not in terms of the content changing or people feeling passionately enough and committed enough about the deep structural inequalities in society to come out and say and practice their art with it. I think, though, that if this COVID thing continues and the separation that is being asked of us from our peer group, our families, etc., that has a chance to alter the identity of artistic communities that currently come together, as Suresh was saying, have meals together, decide on activist programs, decide on who is going to do what, brainstorm while being in a actual physical space. So I don't know how that will change with more online interaction and the distancing we are asked to make. There is also that element, as Jagath said, people are getting, so somebody said, people are getting used to it. I have found myself really enjoying meetings online because I'm not stuck in traffic jams trying to get to a meeting, right? So we are also constantly making these compromises, telling ourselves what is good about the situation. And yet I think that poses a danger to changing the identity of artistic communities that have come together as collectives. So I see that as a possible problem if this continues in the long term, if this new normal or whatever we call it continues in the long term, and whether content then ultimately changes. when the form and the practice also changes, is something that we have to see.
Thank you, Neloufer. So to sum up what we have gone through, there is always a positive note saying that we should continue what we are doing, and there are much more important things. And also, as a medical, with a medical background, I can see that Spanish flu, we have come across cholera, we have come across malaria, we have come across polio. Everything came. Spanish flu was much bigger than this, and Ebola and various other things, but we have survived all these things. And Ebola had a much more fatality rate than this, about 50% fatality. And MERS and SARS, everything had a higher percentage of mortality than this epidemic. So though it is sort of brought up in a big way, I do not think that this will last forever, or this is going to change. As Neloufer said, is this going to change our practice and our attitudes towards life and the living and the arts? I don't think it will change, have a major impact. As now itself, we can see the movement is getting back to normal, and people are sort of, except face masks, nothing else is being maintained. Face masks also is becoming a culture, but it's definitely with time it will pass off, and we will come victorious. And also, but one thing I see in this situation is that this has given us an opportunity to interact with people across time and space at any time, because we have been participating in these type of conversations and discussions almost every week with international audience. So I think this has opened up a new space as such for us to discuss at least. So as Neloufer said, yeah, there is a threat to the sort of practice that we were maintaining as artists, to get together and discuss and have meal and things like that. And I'm sure that will get back to normal very soon. Thank you all for participating in this very useful discussion. We will be posting these recordings on our website for anyone who is interested to see. Thank you all. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
you, Suresh. Yeah. Okay.
This was good.